Super Bowl 59 is right around the corner, and it's the perfect time to get in on all the action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they're giving all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. So this is your shot to make every last play a moment to remember. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using code TBC. The crown is yours. Stay in on all the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code TBC and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code TBC only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Wake that ass up
early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV Jess Hilarious, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. Lauren LaRosa filling in for Jess, and we got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
We got 19 Keys. Welcome.
Man, blessing to be here again.
Peace, King. He's the host of the High Level Conversations podcast. Every time I'm in the barbershop, High Level Conversations is on.
That's
I'm
good.
not even joking. Like, literally, this was my guy Ty in Jersey. Literally every single time. Like,
I got to pull up on him.
Oh, right there in Teaneck. Yeah. Absolutely. But for those who don't know, who is 19 Keys? You've been here before. You was up here with Earn Your Leisure, but who is 19 Keys?
I'm a thought leader in the futures, man. I'm from Oakland, California. I grew up in a time where I seen black men with money, success, and power, right? And they were all militant, right? So growing up in Oakland, California in a real, like, direct black Muslim economic environment, it allowed me to see the world differently. You feel me? But then also, I grew up partly in St. Louis as well. So we was in between, like, the streets and a Muslim environment. So I was able to see both sides of it. You feel me? I grew up in a corporate world, working jobs, things of that nature, but I fired them because I felt hypocritical speaking to people about economic empowerment and liberation and then working for the white man. You feel me? But I grew up at a time my parents told me I was a god, that I could do anything. So they installed this belief and this pride, right, within self that I see was missing in the world, right? Growing up in St. Louis, people that I grew up with, I understood that their environment, their paradigm, their consciousness, completely different than the one that I had. The perspective that I had, they could never get because they didn't grow up like I did. Even my younger brothers don't have the exact same upbringing that I had. They didn't go to all the FOI classes or some of the missions with me and my father, so they don't get that same directness of attachment to seeing the world in the capacity that I do. Like I just live, I feel like since I was younger, I've been having high-level conversations, right? I was speaking on stages since I was like 5 years old.
I've seen those videos.
Yeah. So it always felt like a calling, but when I was younger, I never thought I was going to be a great speaker. I thought that was my older brother. You feel me? My older brother ended up getting in a lot of trouble, going to jail, in and out of prison. And for me, I felt like, man, let me take up that mantle, right? And so that's when I decided to say, well, then, if he's not going to be the leader, I'm going to be the leader. You feel me? And so I believe I made that my persona and my role throughout life. But of course, you know, it's never been perfect. You know, I done been in trouble, I've been in jail multiple times, grew up in environments where I done seen so many black men fail, right? Whether they went crazy, got locked up in jail on drugs. I done seen all sides of the black experience, right? And I've always been interested in technology, education, ever since I was younger. So for me, I feel like what I do in the culture now is what I'm naturally interested in, right? Like I don't, a lot of people look at it when I talk about truth or truth seeking. It's not that I think I'm better than somebody who just focuses on money. I think I'm just better at focusing on truth. You know what I mean? And so I feel like that's my pathway to influence, and that's the one thing that I can give to the world. So as a futurist, I'm always looking ahead and saying, what space are we not playing in? And if I can direct our energy and our attention there before it's too late, we can have some power and ownership, right? So I believe directly not growing up in the like civil rights paradigm of activism allowed me to see it different, that it was about economic empowerment, militant leadership that was going to free us.
So your father and mother were in the nation?
Yeah, so my mother was mostly in the nation. My father was in another black Muslim group at the time in Oakland. It was called Your Black Muslim Bakery. It was started by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad by a man named Dr. Bey. Now, my father was a captain at this organization. He had like an army of like 500 men. You know, he was a ride around the motorcade. They had like the first vegan bakeries. And at that time, it was funny because it was mostly white people that would go there. This was before you had like the renaissance of health that's going on today. So for me, that was like one of my first jobs.
Was this before How to Eat to Live?
No.
Okay, no way, right? Yeah.
Because Elijah Muhammad was the one that stamped it. You know, I always say, like, when you think about history, who is the greatest, like, economic liberator that we've had that showed us, like, an economic
Honorable
network?
Elijah Muhammad.
But most people don't think of him like that because we think of it just in religious context and terms. So we think about Black Wall Street, right, from O.W. Gurley. When he bought that 40 acres, he had like 72,000 people there. He was circulating that black dollar, which was very powerful. Then you had Marcus Garvey, right? Marcus Garvey was a cold entrepreneur. He decided to create a parallel world of white folks and say, man, let me build my own star line, right? Y'all got white, we gonna have black. The Black Star in Ghana is because of that. That was a different type of Pan-Africanism that they had back in that time than we have today. Then you have Madam C.J. Walkers. You had, of course, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who had the last economic empire in America. But we're not even taught about that in school in a way to say, let's resurrect that blueprint because that was the last most effective one that worked.
You how old were you when you first read Message to the Black Man?
Man, we learned that in school. That was that might be my first words.
Word.
Like that was just. I went to a school called Elijah's Educational Center when I was younger. Before I went to public school, so everything was, you know, indoctrinated into the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Do for self, self-sufficiency, learn about the fall of America, right? To me, you know, the way America goes was always what we were taught in school since children. So I was never surprised about none of the actions that are happening today. So it just made sense logically.
Yo, it's interesting, right?
I had a question, though, something that you said earlier. You talk about entrepreneurship and how important that is, especially for our culture. So speak on that, because a lot of people don't necessarily get entrepreneurship because they weren't raised by it, right?
Yeah.
They're raised to work a 9-to-5, busy bee workers. So break that down a little bit.
Well, I think it's monumentally important. And I could first look at, like, why did we shift away from it, right? If you look at in the early 1960s, the CIA would fund certain groups that was pushing more towards Afrocentricity, right? And the reason they did that because they would rather you have just their symbolic cultural pride than actual ownership, right? So they didn't mind that the movement shifted towards integration and assimilation of acculturation practices because they would rather you focus on that than direct militant political action through economic ownership and entrepreneurism. So that Elijah Muhammad movement, when they seen a man at the time that had a $50 million revenue, which in today's adjusted time would be $500 million, they was like, no, that's much harder for us to control and deal with. We would rather, and we found this out later on that these was groups that they was funding, but the reason they did it because, again, they looked at it like, let's create these conversations between blacks and Ghanas and in Ghana rather, and academia and things of that nature to get them to think a certain way. That culture is the only way, but culture in the form of music and arts and entertainment, and let's just put on the kufis and the kente cloths and let's just feel good about it. Versus, let's just own our own world parallel to theirs and be sovereign about it, right? If you look in history and you go look at the Seminole Wars, it lasted for like 41 years, on and off. When you take a look at slavery, it wasn't just slaves, it was warriors. You know what I mean? It was like a real war going on for blacks and Seminoles to stay free in Florida. But we don't think about history in that manner. We think about it, man, we were just in chains waiting to be free. No, we was fighting the whole entire time and never stopped fighting. But that pivots you from a place of pride. So that war ended 4 years before the Civil War. And partially of that Civil War, they was realizing, man, we spending so much money trying to re-enslave black people, right? We actually messing up the country. Right? Like white supremacy wasn't profitable at the time. So that was partially the reason they had to go to war because they like, man, we got to figure this thing out. We spent billions of dollars to go try to re-enslave them and they still fighting us. It was too costly, right? Even in today's time, it became too costly, which is why they started doing the Southern strategy and things of that nature with the Republicans. So getting that to entrepreneurship during the 1920s, we felt like, man, we had a belief that was different at that time. it wasn't we about to fight for civil rights. It wasn't how do we integrate. It was just, man, we can build our own cities. We can build our own states. We can build our own banks. We can buy our own land. And everybody believed it. And in this destruction of Black Wall Street, it was the belief that they destroyed, right? It put this fear on this idea that, wait a minute, if we build it, they will destroy it. But then history, I feel like, was narrated the wrong way, because history makes it seem like we stopped building after that. When in fact, there was like 50 plus towns that came after that.
Wilmington, North Carolina.
100%.
What is it? In Chicago, it was, I think, Bronzeville.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they had a fear of Black progress, right? Left to our own vices, we just build and create and create and create. And that was the mind we were supposed to keep. And when you look at the Madam C.J. Walkers, the Booker T. Washingtons, and things of that nature, these were pioneering individuals who had entrepreneurial mindsets that would create products, learn how to market and brand and sell at a time that was monumentally hard. So I want us to first understand we've always been entrepreneurs, right? Going back early, we've always been industrious throughout this whole entire time in America. There's never been a time that we haven't been. It just haven't been told like that. So when I think about history, I never thought about history from a point of slavery. I think about it from a point of victory. Like, we've always been fighting. 4 years after the Seminole Wars, the Civil War comes. And why you think them brothers were so good at war, right? The first blood that was shed in this country was Black blood for this country, right? And you take somebody like John Horse, who fought in that war. He fought in multiple wars for his freedom. When I think about a story like that, that's a story of resilience. You know what I mean? Like, to fight in war at that time was hard, especially to survive. Not only that, we learned about Harriet Tubman, but with John Horse, he took over 200 people over 800 miles to Mexico for freedom. Now, as entrepreneurs, what are we doing? It's an act of rebellion. It's a act of resilience, right? We saying that I want to be a consumer. I want to produce what I consume, right? That's the direct mindset that they want to eliminate, right? Because if we have that sort of thought process, then you take your child and you start building generational wealth by teaching them skill sets, by saying, look, Pops built up this coffee company, right? This is what our last name represents, this industry. Now, this is what you get to command and take over and expand. Now, you give purpose and vision and guidance to the next generation. So for me, when I fired my job, I worked at Prada for a number of years.
I like how you say that. Fired my job.
Yep.
Yeah. They couldn't afford me no more. I got too smart for them. So it really wasn't fair for me to continue to work for them. You feel me?
What was you doing exactly?
Sales.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm in there speaking Mandarin. You feel me? I learned how to sell very well, where I was studying every psychological book that I possibly could on it. And, you know, a command of language and communication has always been my forte, and I realized I was extremely good at it. But what I also realized, I was there to steal the knowledge and then go utilize that for myself. So soon as I fired them, I actually opened up a business in Oakland, California, right? I had a storefront where it was a clothing store. The store at the time was called Musa Hill. I do art as well, so I would sell my paintings throughout there. It lasted for about 2 years, and then somebody hired me to come speak at their school, Chabot College, and I went there and I had a plan. I said, when I go there, I'm gonna speak. And at the time, I got like 500 followers. But I said, I'm going to speak, and it's going to go viral. Now, everybody looking at me like I'm crazy. But I understood the type of conversations that I had, that if the world heard, right, it would be needed and valuable. So, therefore, I did, and they did go viral. And then the following started to come in. And I couldn't manage both at the same time. I couldn't manage to continue to do the clothing. I found a calling and a purpose in that. And I said, let me go full time on that. Right, as being 19 keys for the world.
What is I want to ask you two things. You talked about going to the Elijah Muhammad school before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Elijah's Educational Center.
How was that? How many grades did you do? How old were you when you started public school, regular public school?
I think that was around, public school was probably around 5th grade.
So what was that culture shift like when you come from, you know, getting the knowledge, studying things like, you know, Elijah Muhammad, Message to the Black Man, but then going to public school? Because you light years ahead of everybody.
Yeah, it was crazy because it was like a culture shock because them kids was crazy. You feel me? Mannish and freaky. You feel me? They was wild and stuff that, it wasn't that we was just ultimately sheltered, right? We understood the world existed. I still grew up in Oakland, right? I still grew up off 24th and Telegraph. When we went back to school, you feel me? None of the kids in our environment went to the same school that we did. So we understood it that, you know, everybody else had a different way of living. We were always the Muslim family in the neighborhood. You feel me? All our other friends was Christian and things of that nature. So, but going to that public school, number one, I realized and I started to feel sorry for other children, right? I used to feel sorry for kids that believed in Santa Claus when I was younger. I thought they was dumb, straight up.
Word.
Right? Because the story just didn't make no sense to me.
That's what I tell you.
Well, because y'all feel that don't.
Why lie to your kids? Why tell your black
that's the way you
children
raise- that's the way
that it's a
you-
fat white
but
man
that's
coming
the
down
way
the
you
chimney?
raise your
giving
kids.
them
I think
gifts?
there's
I
no
think when
reason
you,
to.
I
That's the
think
way
when
you
you
raise
grow
your
up, because
kids.
like for me, like it was like, okay, it's a myth of Santa Claus, but when I grew up, it was more so like, oh, you can believe in something that's not real, and it's kind of like dreaming type
And then you
of
get
thing.
older and realize that's not real, and that's why people even get a disconnection from God. Because
That
they're like,
didn't
damn,
happen. That didn't happen with me. That didn't happen with everybody else. For me, it was like, okay, if my mom can work however long a year to make Christmas happen, blood, sweat, and tears, but she wants me to believe in something bigger because for whatever reason, let me go out into the world and see what believing in something bigger can do, because I know she
give
busts
a
her
fat
behind.
white man the credit for her.
I had
busting
black
her ass
Santa
all year.
Clauses in my house, and coming down when we would see Santa, they were black, and she did that on purpose.
Why did you feel sorry for him, 19 Keith?
Well, because I just didn't think it was smart. It didn't make any sense to me. And I felt that I just remember being younger and feeling like the truth is the best thing you can know, like actually being in reality, right? And, you know, it's funny because my grandma, she wasn't Muslim like us. She would still try to get like my sisters. She was a little sexist. Shout out to my grandma, though. Rest in peace to her. She'd get them Christmas presents sometime. But I still would think about it, and I'd be like, I actually don't care, right? Kids would come to school, and they would brag about it, but I never cared because I felt like they was just living like this false reality where their parents was lying to them daily. That was just me coming from like a Muslim school, right? That was my reality, seeing Christmas trees and lights everywhere. I just felt like, man, everybody is practicing a lie. And it didn't make sense to me when I was younger, going throughout the neighborhood. I can understand Christmas has great marketing, great branding. It has songs, it has carols, it has drinks. The whole nine. Christmas is the greatest brand in marketing, but today it's just about consumption. And I like things that bring family together, which is what we should be focused on. And I believe that you can give your children a good story. You can stretch their imagination, right? I think Christmas, if anything, is a lazy way to do it, right? Because in today's time, like my parents would get us to imagine the future, right? Imagine, you know, what would take place after we see America fall? It wasn't like a gloom and doom. America's go fall and we go fall with it. No, it represented a time that this was the end of their world and this was the beginning of ours. So what position and role would you play? Anytime my mother would see me complain about something, she'd say, well, then be the solution. She had never let me just continue the thought out loud and complain about whatever I seen, no matter where it was and who I was talking about. She would always cut me off with this long intellectual thought that I had and was like, okay, we'll be the solution. And then at some point in time, it finally clicked like, all right, let me go in the world and be the solution. Like, even if we go talk about Christmas, then the goal would be to create a new holiday, something that can become a more dominant paradigm, because you can't beat one that has all of this power and these billions of dollars spent on it. The powerful thing that I think what it does is it makes a child want to go against society and want to go against a simulation. And I think that that makes a much more powerful mind than one that is practicing what the population practices, right? It makes you think differently. And in today's time, that's key because that child is more creative, they're more resilient, they're more innovative, right? They think for themselves. And when they see the crowd going a certain direction, they want to go the other direction. They're not easily swayed. So I think it's powerful to teach your child the truth and then let them decide what they want to do with that truth.
How hard is it to do that in the era of social media, where it feels like, you know, everybody is just wanting to be a part of the algorithm? I always say that there's more surfers than there are waves. I encourage people to be waves, not surfers.
Well, the algorithm is the government now, right? That's the power that we have today. You know, those who control the networks are those who rule the world. They don't wear crowns anymore. You feel me? Their power is through AI. Their power is through digital. Their power is through finance. Their power is through these networks that we use every single day. And we give them consent every time we utilize them. We are in a time where we have a wealth of information, but a poverty of attention. And so much information makes it hard for us to focus. And without focus, you can't produce your will into reality, right? If you constantly consuming things every single day, there's a new disaster happening, right? But it also says, well, we know what you're going to be thinking about every day. Whatever we put out on the airwaves, whatever we put out on media, we're going to keep you so busy, you will never think about creating your own world. And what are we going to do with your time? We're going to give you things on our calendar for to think about. There's an airplane crash. There's a new thing with Donald Trump going on today. Elon Musk is doing the new, Nazi salute. There's always something to think about that they're doing to keep your mind busy. So, number one, playing the algorithm games, it makes us these little capitalists that start to mimic the elites, right? But we never have as much power as the elites because they control the algorithm itself. If you look at somebody like Elon Musk, he got the Department of Government Efficiency. If you look at that, there's a parallel in history. In 697, there in Venetia, there was a Doge, right? And the Doge is somebody who was elected by the elites to rule, that they can put in position that didn't have to go through the bureaucracy, right? That could control things. And it's the exact same thing that he's doing now. He's doing memetic leadership where if everybody's all of their attention is being stolen, a meme is the easy way to connect people, right? It's like during the times where white people literacy rates were so low that they would utilize propaganda cartoons to get them to hate black people because they couldn't read the newspapers. It's the same thing with memes today. They go at the low-hanging fruit. So in the algorithm, if you're constantly stuck on X and Instagram and YouTube and things of that nature, then that means that you're in a net of control, right? The only way to get out of it is to have your own sovereignty where you produce your own and you focus on creating and less consuming. But as long as we're consuming, there's nothing we can do against white supremacy.
Well, I think the biggest thing, especially when you talk about social media, is, I don't know percentage-wise, but the majority of the stuff online is false, right?
Yeah, it's fake as well.
And then you got people who are spreading this fake news as it's real. And the problem with that is, you and I both know, once they start making money off of it because they are quote-unquote creator, they continue because now they don't care about the community. They don't care about the truth. They care about the bottom line, which is for them, their dollar sign.
Yeah.
So they'll continue this and they'll be a quote-unquote creator and a quote-unquote loudmouth and they'll continue on. And the problem is we don't have no checks and balances of what's right and what's wrong. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times we look online and you see the news report something that's fake.
Right.
So it's like, well, how do you get these checks and balances, especially for our community?
I think you got to create programs for it, like AI algorithms, and I think that that's one of the opportunities. Anytime we got a problem, it's an opportunity for a business, right? That can be a AI tool. They try to do the fact-checking things. The problem with that is the bias of the people behind them. It's your version of history that you consider to be correct. And so instead, we have to take those same blueprint and models and have our own. I look at it right now, like I would take a lot of my old work and I would put it into AI and I would ask, what is the accuracy of these predictions? I would look at stuff that I predicted from 5 to 10 years ago, and it would tell me whether these things came true at 80 or 90% accuracy or not. And I look at creating a program to where you can look at it, it's like a Yelp rating, right? It shouldn't be an expert that can just pop up today. You should be able to have a lineage of work that you've done that validates your expertise in a subject. And nowadays we have AI that can go run a program and look, Charlamagne been 90% right about media, right? Or economic and micro and macro trends. So maybe you should listen to him. Social media should now come with these type of verification checks to see who's actually been accurate. So as you're trying to cut through the noise, you say, you know what? I'm gonna listen to Envy on this because Envy is verified in this particular category, especially as we're getting away from a lot of degree-based skills. So I think that for me, those who are developers and AI engineers and those who have social media platforms should be thinking about creating systems like that to where you can verify people's influence over time.
What if somebody's new though in influence? Like, how do you verify? Like, you know what I mean? Because I think, so for instance, like if you're working at just in news, if you're working at an outlet, sometimes you might not get a byline, but then you go over to another platform and people get to know who you are. You can't like check my background and know what I was doing while I was at that outlet, but what I'm doing it somewhere else now, and it's verified. Like, how would your system check that? Because how do you even look that up? Like, you call for references to the old, like, the background? Like,
Well, I think sources matter, right? That's what you do in media. Journalistic integrity is looking at sources to verify things, right? So I think in lieu of having that experiences, then you will have references, right? It's the same thing we did when you have a resume, right? Like, who is the person that reference you that we can look back and say, okay, this person is accountable for when you mess up. So now this person is not as reliable or accountable. If Charlamagne said, look, this person is really good at their job, and then 2 weeks in they messing up, then that's gonna mess up his credibility. You feel me? I think we need to have that in this age of AI because everything is artificial, right? And people can create whatever they want to. And the age of AI is artificial intimacy, artificial intelligence, artificial information, artificial insemination, artificial ingredients. We are living in their world, a fake world, a world that they get to control and build around us, a matrix, right? We're not living in reality anymore. So we need things that can check to say, okay, what is real? Because you can't trust your own eyes, ears, and senses. And in some ways you should, because they can tell you what something means even though you've seen it with your own eyes. They can control the narratives to say, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that, or maybe it's this. Now you don't know what to believe. So for me, I decide what's real for myself, and then I verify what's real. And most people don't know how to research, right? Because you could be living in an echo chamber to where you went and got sources of something, but those same sources are verified on each other. And this is the problem with today is there's no journalistic integrity, but everybody is a media platform, right? Like I had directed, because now we do news on the high level conversation page a lot, but now I tell him, make sure we're getting sources for everything, right? There was somebody that hit us up and said the story that we ran on them wasn't 100% true. So we went back and we corrected it. And I believe that that's the best way to do it. It's okay to be wrong, right? But correct yourself.
Especially nowadays, because you can get sued.
No, but no,
Yeah.
he's right. It's okay to be wrong, but the problem with being wrong sometimes, which I hate, what you said about the person could have went viral a million
no
one
doubt.
times.
Oh, yeah.
But then
It's
when you
out
go
there.
back and say, hey, we made a mistake,
Nobody ever sees the correction.
nobody picks that
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. But that time, that already hurt their career, already hurt what they were doing because of false information.
And go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say people need to filter what's sensationalism, what's gossip, what's hit pieces. There's different type of media, and we're not regarding. I even think that there should be a sentiment analysis on that, right? This sounds more like gossip. There's no facts in here. There's no references. There's no sources. So therefore, you can't take this as fact. I think social media should have them type of claims on it versus to say this is false information. Just say this is gossip.
Y'all right, but nobody cares about the truth when the lie is more entertaining.
Exactly.
100%.
And some of
Yeah.
it got to be entertainment too. Not got to be, but that's what people want.
Well, that captures people's attention to remember things and even negative things, right? The reason we focus on negative things is because it's based on our survival, right? If something, we evolved to see negative things and focus more on it because we evolved to survive in case things are threats. So we give them more attention than they should. We get one negative comment out of 1,000, and then all of our brain processes focuses in on that to make sure that that's not a threat, but then we remember that more and we magnify it. So the problem is usually never as big as it really is in reality. It's our perception of it, right? Because there's always something positive going on, but we don't pay attention to it as much. So we live in a world of low-level information, low-level entertainment, low-level conversations, right? And most people don't have a reasoning ability, critical thinking skills to analyze data or even have the time to do it. I think when you think about having time to process information is the key. I spend a lot of time reflecting on things before I speak, which is why I don't want to just sound like, oh, I seen something on Twitter, so now I'm going to reverberate whatever that was. No, I want to say, okay, what do you actually think about it? And most people don't realize they're not actually thinking, right? They're reacting. They don't know how to respond. They don't have an ability to respond, so they're not responsible, right? When things happen in the media, we just react. Now there's videos, reaction, because you don't actually know what you think. You just know how to react. That's low level. High level is taking time to actually think about it, study it, go into a deep analysis, understand the root of it. So now you have the ability to see it from a different perspective and analyze things. That's what we have to be, but this is what I know, is that the average and the majority of people will never get there. Most people will stay stuck in this matrix. This is why they need leaders. Even though it shouldn't be this point to where you're looking for a savior. I say save yourself. If there was a grown man, who was drowning in a pool and everybody was just staring at him, why you think that is?
Because they're trying to figure out why you can't swim.
Or they can't swim.
Or it's not even that deep. It's really shallow water and all you got to do is stand up, but he panicking. And to me, that's the analogy of Black America, right? All we have to do is stand up, but we panicking as if we need some help and we need somebody to save us. You can't tell us, like, I see the boycotts with Target. And that's, let's say, part of it. But the next step how do we produce what we consume? How do we become prosumers? How do we say not only we're going to boycott y'all, we're going to boycott with us, right? So that our goal is not a 40-day or 60-day boycott. It's saying that, you know what? The consequence of this action forces us now to go more radical, like the leaders in the past. And we're done with the civil rights era because even Martin Luther King said after civil rights comes Black power, right? What's more Black power than economic ownership to where we're building our own world? And now we have that ability to do it utilizing blockchain technologies. We can create digital city infrastructures. You study a country like Estonia. Y'all got some water in here?
We can bring in some.
Say, you give them some water?
I've been having this good Supermine coffee. I got y'all some gifts as well.
All right. I want to talk more about that boycott too.
I do too.
We gonna get into it
because it's interesting with the boycott because I haven't seen what the call to action is. Well, no, I see what the call to action is. It's the boycott, but what do we hope to gain from said boycott? And I think it's wild that people are targeting just Target when Amazon did the same thing,
Yes.
Meta did the same thing. Well, that's Meta.
Facebook,
Meta did the
Instagram,
same
all
thing.
that, yeah.
Walmart's done the same thing. It's like, why just Target? And you're protesting on the platform that's also doing the same thing to you? I'm just,
I think we like to pacify and get symbols versus substance.
And I'm not saying they're wrong for boycotting.
No,
I just need to hear more.
I'm not gonna dog them. I think that they're just used to a certain playbook, and this is what they know. This is how they know to react and know how to respond. Again, it goes back to history. We are continuing to look at how do we become activists, how do we become revolutionary, and we take a certain archetype, right? We take the Martin, the Malcolm, and say, okay, well, if I want to be a revolutionary activist, I'm going to do this. The problem is we're in a new time, so it has to evolve and it has to look more innovative in the way that we go about doing things. When I talked about the Seminole Wars, they spent billions of dollars trying to capture them, and they realized, number one, we could have spent that money building ourselves up. Right, building our world up. Why are we spending billions of dollars to try to capture slaves? That didn't make no sense to them, right? We spent billions of dollars in the civil rights era, right, trying to integrate, right? And when we were boycotting the bus lines, we could have took all of that focus and created on bus systems. We could have took all of that money, that time, that energy, and that protest and say, what about these businesses that we can build up? Instead, we were looking to be accepted, right? And we weren't going for real power, we was going for symbolic power, power of gesture. So the real power would be saying, you know what? Our focus becomes this round table. And this is where I put the onus on Black leadership. Because when you say we ain't got Black leadership, we actually do, right? But they just don't position themselves as such. You got the Divine Nine, right? That is a powerful organization and network all throughout America. We seen that power when Kamala Harris was able to raise $1 billion, right? We bragged about the power, matter of fact, that we can get on a call of 10,000 of us instantly overnight and raise millions of dollars. Our problem has always been shifting power in the wrong direction. Instead of empowering ourselves, we're asking somebody else to give us power. And that's not true. So we're focused on being influential instead of being forceful, right? Force don't ask, they get shit done. And the reason that you will never have from that side of the political spectrum, and not just Divine Nine, HBCUs, the NABJ, the NOI, the Black churches, the Black caucus, where's that round table, right? If we really wanted to have a real agenda, and not just an agenda where we just talk about something, now we have the ability to create infrastructure behind that instantly. They have a first 100 days, where's our first 100 days, right? Are we gonna complain about what somebody else doing, which is very intelligent to their agenda, and they're showing you how to become efficient and effective to get things done? When you go look at that amount of people that was behind Elon Musk, that's the oligarchs showing their power, right? Saying that we no longer have to hide, right? The WEF believed in having the elites having complete global and economic control, right? We live in a technocracy to where it ain't about elected officials, it's about experts. So if we see these shifts that happen, you got a Department of Government Efficiency. Well, Black America is not operating off efficiency. The monies that we put into these organizations are not creating what we need them to create. So that means that either you pass the torch, right? You get out the way, or we dismantle those organizations and create better ones that's more about self-sufficiency and economic sovereignty. Mm-hmm. So look at media. Media is the most powerful medium that we have. It's where we have the most influence in. We influence culture. But the problem is that we put so much emphasis on the feeling of culture versus actual real ownership. The reason we like Nipsey Hussle is because not only was he culture, but he had practices of it, right? He had businesses. He had his family dynamic. He practiced on investment. He talked about cryptocurrency and different technologies that we could utilize. We're in this state of financial nihilism where the average person believes that the system is rigged. There's no point in me playing in it. So they're afraid of financial literacy because they like, well, I'm gonna get into stocks and crypto, or stocks versus, because it's all rigged and it's owned by them. Financial nihilism spread in the Black community first, which is why Black men earlier were the first adopters of cryptocurrency, because as soon as you heard it, well, okay, well, if they own this system, it's a new system coming, let me get in this. But it also makes us gamble, right? Which is why gambling is so hot right now, which is why meme coins are so hot right now. Previous generations had lottery tickets and Powerball, right? We got sports betting and meme coins, because now you feel like I need to make me a quantum leap because the elites own all the assets and asset prices are way too expensive. And if you go look at the average income in any one of these cities, they can't afford to buy a house anymore. So the American dream is dead. So you need a new dream, a new vision. And my thought process and my plan behind the scenes, we're working on a lot of different things, is how you create your own digital nation, and then that digital nation creates and buy physical assets. You can do things like Dows. You ain't got to buy into nothing. You can say, okay, Black Church, NABJ, HBCUs, everybody that wants to, all the activists, everybody that wants to have a voice, how about we create a decentralized autonomous organization, which essentially is saying that everybody can become a citizen of it and vote what we want to do next. If we put together millions of dollars inside this treasury, then we can decide what we want to buy with that money, what we want to create, right? We can start our own social media. We can build our own targets. All of these things were created by founders and men. These things are not impossible to do. But as long as we use these systems, there's impossible ways to fight them.
I have a question. All of that, I agree. I think that and what you're trying to do is needed. But my pushback would be, or just I want to hear your thoughts on it. Number one, like you talk about social media and just, creating our own. We have fan base, right? People complain about X and Instagram, but they don't go to fan base, right? And then you have Tabitha Brown, who got a lot of pushback because she was like, look, let's be smarter. Let's support the Black brands so they don't disappear on these corporate levels.
She's
and
right.
then we can take that money and then go build our own. So we need somebody in the room to get in, infiltrate, and then we move our own, right? We don't support stuff like that. We don't support the fan bases. So when do we ever get to that point where it's centralized, where we can actually move the way you're talking about? Because I think
we shouldn't say we're not supporting fan base.
Yeah, I think he raised the most money out of any platform.
It's not that we're not supporting it, but people are not. There's not a mass exit from Twitter or Instagram. Like there's not. Well, and that I think two things can be true with that.
I think that it's not just the fact that people don't want to support it. I think it's the way he's building it, and that's no disrespect to Isaac Hayes. I had tweeted out the other day, me and him had our differences, but I would still utilize fan base because I would be hypocritical not to, right? And I believe there should be a mass exodus and people should utilize it. I think that, when I had a conversation with him years ago, I was telling him, or at least advising what I believe was one of the best routes to get a mass amount of people to utilize it. Because unfortunately, we don't go to things because they Black owned. Right. And today we have a society of young people who utilize things based on the best use case for them. This is the whole reason why you got TikTok versus the US. Right. Right. And they saying, well, TikTok created the best platform. They have the best algorithm, which is why we use it. Right. You have DeepSeek versus OpenAI. They said, well, this one is better, so therefore I'm going to use it. Globalization has people looking at, instead of identity and having loyalty to nationalism, right? They say, I want loyalty to whatever is the best thing that's going to help me with the American dream, right? How can I make money, right? How can I build and become sustainable? And unfortunately, I just named all those groups. We're too splintered to have a united thought process at this point in time. We don't have a cultural code that we live by, right? Neely Jr. just died, and he talked about having a code, the Black code, right? Something that we live by that connects us all. We don't have that whatsoever. So I don't know what you believe about, the Black economic movement. I don't know what you believe, what I believe. We can all have 4 different perspectives and opinions. So each person will go on fan base for a completely different reason, right? So therefore, we're speaking to each other as if we're a monolith, but we know we're not at all, not even close to being. Look at even the recent election. You couldn't get all Black people to vote for Kamala, right? People felt like it wasn't in their best interest. Whether it was or not, that's up to you. So I think that you have to reestablish a conversation so we having the same conversation first, right? This is what I'm writing a book about high-level conversations, and what you realize is that you can be talking to somebody, but they could be talking about something completely different than you. And you have to establish a baseline first. What is the most important thing? I think is economic sovereignty, right? If we can all agree that we must do for self, we can all agree that we need to have our own banks, our own systems, our own schools, education. Then we decide, okay, well then what is the best route? This is why I believe in things like Dows and voting mechanisms. This is not something that's going to take 100 years. This is something that can get done in 100 days, right? And what we should be focusing on is efficiency, right? What is the most efficient and effective way to do it? Because I think that when I look at these boycotts, I look at inefficient, old, outdated models, right, of activism that we keep recycling, but they don't create any progress. So therefore, it's easy to control because they already know that playbook. Oh, they're going to try to boycott us for 40 days. Just wait that out. Don't even worry about it. You feel me?
And we look even crazier boycotting something like Target while we're on platforms that have also rolled back their DEI.
Come on now. Mark Zuckerberg rolled it back. We talking about it on X and Twitter. This is how they know you're not serious. And a lot of people may not like this, but again, when you go back to the timelines of history, we have this Malcolm and Martin paradox, right? People pick sides. And it's more creating a conflict between us. Oh, I'm Malcolm, I'm non-pacifist. Oh, you more aggressive. Oh, I'm Muslim, you Christian. I believe the powers that be knew what narratives to push on the Black community that was more divisive, right? Why don't we study Marcus Garvey and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who had the most successful economic blueprints?
And especially when Malcolm was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's student.
Yes. I was thinking you were saying Marcus, but yes.
No.
No, 100%. But when you look at history, people go say, well, they killed this, and it's not true. But first of all, you should look at it based on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had a 3rd grade education. He built an entire ecosystem in America with this intelligence. Who is that man? How was he able to do it, right? And I don't care if you like him or not. If he had the right blueprint, then we should follow it.
Right.
That's it. Like, we got to get off our feelings about whether he was Christian or Muslim or this and that. And I believe that's what holds us back, because we're not following the right blueprint. We're looking at who we like, right? And that's because we're focused on how do we maintain and have more control. The Black church are not going to push no economic plan by Elijah Muhammad because they need you to continue to follow them, right? And some of the stuff that they do is just downright disrespectful and not teaching the correct history. So I believe that it's this timeline that we have in the way that we look at history, which is why we don't see ourselves a certain way. If we see ourselves as, wait a minute, this man had banks, he had schools, he had airplanes, he had aviation schools, trusts, farms, right? Import, export with poultry. He had banks, temples all across America. It was an economic network. Black Wall Street was one place in time. We have to make it not just how do we create one Black Wall Street, how do we create the economic network that is Black Wall Street today, right? And we don't have to reference in the past something that's attached to trauma. We can look at something that was happening in the 1960s. And when you look at history, you look at the fact that we stopped focusing on global allies. We stopped going into this radical mind, right? And we went to a more pacifist way of thinking. And I think that that's what's dangerous today.
I agree. You know, everything you're talking about, what do you think of, like, because you're describing basically like a sovereign wealth fund, right? And you see Trump just signed the order establishing a sovereign wealth fund for America. So it's like, you're right. They're doing things that we could potentially be doing.
They show you the blueprint.
Right there. in
You
your
want to do
face.
boycotting? That's old. That's just one part of it. If y'all want to be the activist, sure, we need somebody to make the noise, right? We need somebody to bring attention, but allow people who actually have real plans about infrastructure. And we don't, and I don't need to come on here and break it all down. That's void of the point. You don't need to let your enemy know everything that you're doing. But the point is that there are real people who actually know how to lead these things. And the reason that I'm saying, like, I don't want to just go on social media and say it. I want to have these conversations with leaders behind the scenes, right? My great aunt, she was the first black chairwoman in the NAACP, right? And my great grandfather, he was the one that helped funded the case, what was it, Keller versus something, where he took it to the Supreme Court because he was in real estate and there was racist covenants that mean that black people couldn't buy real estate in certain places in white neighborhoods. So he took his funds and he funded my aunt, who was an attorney, Thurgood Marshall, and they took that case to the Supreme Court and they won. And it's the reason today where you can buy a house wherever you want to. And I think about things like that to where it's like, all right, at that time, they didn't have the luxury of protesting and activism. All they had to do, all they would focus on was what is direct action for us to have power. It was all black power, right? It was nothing else but black power. And my great aunt, she was kicked out of the NAACP because she was auditing their books at the time, right? And when I bring that up, because I look at organizations and I say, we need to have more accountability for what we're doing, right? We create these image awards, but we are only platforming people that we think are safe. And that means that the advertisement companies are controlling culture, right? Because if we put the people that are the most efficient, then we get a completely different picture of culture. We talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but black men ain't never been included. Not especially my archetype of black Muslim man. The culture completely disregards that we even exist, even though we had the biggest contribution in American history, right? But that's because white power structure says that, no, you can't platform them. They're not safe. They're more dangerous because they're thinking about radical ways to just do for self. They're not looking on how to be accepted by America. So we don't need that to be the mindset because then we don't know if we can come to the table and control you.
Muhammad Ali probably was the biggest one, now that I think about it. Muhammad Ali, and then maybe Minister Farrakhan early 90s. Early, like late 80s, early 90s, but that's when we had more black media.
I was going to say, isn't that like an ownership thing, though? Because it's like, that goes above, like, it's like, okay, you have the NAACP Image Awards. The advertisers who make the decisions don't really care about who's most influential because they don't care about what's really happening to us. Then there's people over top of them that are Hollywood studios. Like, that's a whole nother conversation. But if you own your own platforms, you can do your own things, kind of like what Jason Lee does.
100%.
You get to pick and choose, but that goes back to, again, like the boycotting and the money because people feel like we don't have the resources we can't own at that level. So I think my question is like, who are the leaders and what is the solution? Because I think I always hear these conversations, but I'm always left with all these questions and no plan.
I think all the leaders are ones that's doing for self, right? Everybody that has a platform, everybody that's teaching right now and that's building. I don't want to just point out names because you point out names, then we got this attitude, we start breaking people down.
Gotcha.
Right? What they doing perfect or not. I don't need you to be perfect to be a leader. I need you to be making progress, right? If you go look out there, and that's the whole thing about it, right? It should be easy to say, okay, well, these people have a platform. They're teaching and they're educating people. They building out sustainable models. They doing it organically, without the props, without the position, without the validation. So they're obvious the leaders. And any black man in America should see himself as a leader. This is the one thing I don't like when black men say we don't have leaders. It's some sucker shit because it's saying you not a leader. Every man is supposed to be a leader of himself and his household. Right? So that means that you supposed to be self-sufficient and do for self. You supposed to execute and have the willpower to produce a plan into reality. You supposed to be able to create your own world. The solutions are there, right? Again, let's utilize blockchain. Let's build Dows systems. Let's create a digital economic infrastructure and let's buy physical assets. Let's vote on where we want to put that money towards and we move forward from there. We built a media platform, High Level Conversations, with my own funding. We just take the money and we reinvest in it. Nobody gave us permission because nobody needs to, right? So the solutions are looking at old systems and saying those are old models. I'm speaking to the younger generation. I'm not speaking to the old heads. The old heads, they gonna have to get out the way because they don't want to pass the torch because they want to stay in position. So when I'm speaking, I'm always talking to the youth right now saying, listen, I represent an archetype and a model of do for self. You can do the same thing. right? Somebody don't want to put you on their platform, create your own platform. What we have to do is start respecting those platforms, right? And my brother, you invited me up here probably a year ago. At the time, I was burnt out from doing the tour. But I respect that fact because you didn't have to, right? But you're utilizing your platform in a responsible manner to say, okay, these are one of the voices, let me platform them. I do that with my platform. A lot of times the people that I have on the show, most people never heard about. But I believe they have something beneficial to add, right? My brother Yaki was on there. Episode got millions of views, right? He built out a medical facility in St. Louis. You feel me? So when we do that and we bring in the right people, we have to be intentional about our media, and then there should be a congregation behind the scenes about what are the ideas that we're going to spread. Because if we're not intentional about it, then your platform don't matter. What's the point of having a billionaire if you don't build anything?
That's real.
What's the point of celebrating somebody with millions of dollars if they don't do shit? I think right now when you talk about, yes, it's not the corporations that's saying don't put up 19 keys of this. It's people that work for them that's afraid to do it.
100%.
You feel me? And those are the people that now we have to call out because we can't afford. We're literally in the worst war. At this point in time, this is a war. And we acting like this shit not happening. We act like we just get to go about our days and your children go be safe. They not. They ain't playing no games with us no more. We act like we see them do the most radical things in the world and we think we ain't got to do no radical shit too? What you think go happen? You think we just go keep going by and things are just gonna be okay if we ignore it? We don't have that opportunity anymore, right? We never had it. And now they saying that, well, y'all niggas waited this goddamn long. We can do whatever we want to. We can slap you in the face and keep walking down the street and you ain't gonna do shit, right? We can tell you we ain't fucking with y'all. Y'all go boycott a little bit, then get back to business and y'all go work for us. We gonna tell y'all that we gonna platform every racist, white supremacist and push the algorithm against you and you still go use it. Y'all go laugh with us because we gonna turn this into meme and consent. We gonna govern you with our algorithms and control you every single day. Because now we got AI that can psychologically manipulate and control you. We gonna build quantum computers to create a world around you. So how do you win in that situation? You can't win by participating. The only way to win is to have your sovereignty, is to build your own world. This is why the radical leaders of the past were the ones that they didn't want to continue to platform as we talk about history. Because those are the ones that you can't control. No, we want you to be Afrocentric with your dashiki and just feel like you're a part of something. No, Africa without infrastructure. The brother Ibrahim that's out there that's doing everything, the way these African leaders are saying, no, we don't want your checks. South Africa shouldn't take no more aid from America because as long as you're in the tit of America, they go control you. There's way too much corruption in Africa because all the African leaders should be standing next to South Africa as they going for their land back, right? They dog whistling across the world. Let's make Europe great again. Let's bring in the South Africans and let's help fight for them in their land that they took through apartheid, AKA white supremacy. What is they telling them? They not hiding behind nothing no more. So if you afraid to platform a 19 Keys or somebody else, that makes you just a coward at this point in time.
I feel like, 19 Keys, you represent a new generation of radical black consciousness that has always existed, has always cut through, and is always needed. That's why, throughout the history of Breakfast Club, all of the OGs are older. Dr. Claude Anderson is older. Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is older. Dick Gregory is no longer here. So, if we don't highlight you or the Wesley Muhammads or the Nuri Muhammads, I feel like, we're doing our culture a disservice, our community a disservice. I don't like to use the word culture because I'm not sure if we have one.
Yeah, I think we devalue culture because we don't have enough values that we push, right? If you look around the room, right, it's a lot of great entertainers, right? It's a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars.
The activists, I mean, not the activists, but you got Dr. Claude Anderson up there. Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is up here. Dick Gregory is up there.
I ain't even see on pictures.
Yeah.
I got
to go in on y'all. Y'all the problem.
A little smart. They got them in there. You feel me?
Yeah.
But, the whole entire point of it is that I think we need to understand what the time we're living in right now. Without knowledge of the time, we will lose. And we're in an interesting cycle, right? We're at the end of an empire. And right now, they're going to pull out all stops, a complete oligarchy control. Again, people should go study Doge, right? I'm talking about ancient in Venetia that lasted for 1,100 years, and it was a oligarch society, the longest lasting one. They playing in your face. They know that we don't read enough. They know that people not busy enough. They know that they can turn it into a meme, but then run the same play that they've ran throughout history to control the people, right? And so now it's saying that, okay, we know what they doing, but what are we doing? And so, my proposal is having these roundtable discussions in front of the culture, but first having one behind the scenes, right, about our agreements. If you are in an organization, go to your leadership and ask, why aren't y'all working with them? Right? Because what I'm seeing is, listen, they don't care about feelings. If it works where power just wants more power, they don't ever want to give up power. You never gonna understand a man who only just wants power. He just wants to control. It ain't about no money. It's more power. It's just a will to power. If you study Friedrich Nietzsche, he would give a breakdown about how the masters just wanted to influence the populations and control them, right? There are psychological examinations of these people. But if you don't know your enemy and who you dealing with, right, you gonna think that they not as smart as they are. And they vastly intelligent.
That's right.
Right? And they create systems wherever they fail. Their goal is, how do we, number one, they want to keep making money. And they build systems that's gonna get rid of 80% of the workforce, and we applaud it. That means we want to take human capital and say it's worth nothing. When human capital is what built this country, right? America is based on its citizens' productivity. But if you can't focus, then it decreases your productivity. So they knew this was going to happen, right? So then they bring in automation and robots and then immigration. But then they went a little overboard with immigration. Now they're scapegoating it as the problem. Instead of you seeing the elites as the problem, you seeing black and white relations in immigration. But even a lot of these white radicals are starting to wake up to say, man, these elites done tricked us. They got us looking at black culture as the enemy the whole time. We can't afford houses and cars and plane tickets. And they stole our American dream while they got us fighting each other on Twitter and algorithms. So even they go wake up and realize, and there's going to be a lot of civil wars that's going to be happening, because they're going to look at this as, man, this ain't got shit to do with no patriotism, right? This is about complete elite control, and that's it. So my thing is, okay, in terms of that, let's build our own cities. Let's build our own world. And I see a very possible route. We need devs, right? We need people that want to help fund these movements, right? What's my brother that coined the term, the revolution won't be televised? He said the reason is because it starts in the mind first, right? You can see it on TV, but unless it's in the mind, then ain't nothing gonna be televised. And I want it to be clear, like, I just have a passion for being free. You know what I mean? And having a place of pride. I grew up in this my whole entire life. I don't think I've had a choice to be anything else but who I am, right? I don't know how to speak a different way, think a different way. I see the world and examine things differently. I see people as slaves and I say, here's the route to freedom. You see a man that's broken and say, okay, this is how you get some money. You feel me? You see things that are inefficient. We say, this is the most effective model, right? And we need to get out of localism where we just worrying about our local politics of the street, not even nationalism, to where we worrying about what's going on in America. Our ancient indigenous practices was being stewards of the earth, right? We wasn't just globalism, it's cosmism. How are we connected to the cosmos? If the ancient people of ancient Kemet did not have the power to be able to align with the stars and know how to, or what times to plant and what cycles to do things, then they would have never been able to build a civilization. But we're living in a time system, 9 to 5s, to where we're not even operating in our biological rhythm. We sick. Our mental illnesses is completely high and skyrocketed because we're not living in a cycle that is attuned with the natural time. So for me, it's about how do we live above this matrix, right? How do we operate in a cosmic cycle to where, like, the Dogon people of ancient Mali knew how to map those stars? Every single one of our peoples were cosmic, right? I ain't talking about astrology, I'm talking about astronomy. They understood the universe and they position in it and what time that we living in. We're in the year of the 9. Conflict's supposed to happen.
That's right. Change is supposed to happen.
Yeah, old world's coming out, new world's coming in. So how you reacting on what's happening daily? If you got a cosmic perspective, we live in what they call solar cycle 25, which is every 11 years, the sun has a maximum peak. So we have what they call a solar maxima. So there's more magnetic radiation coming to the earth. So that means you're going to see disruptions. It affects human beings as well. heart rates. We got melanin, so our skin conductive a little more powerful. But what the scientists were saying was that during this time, there's more energy on Earth. It's like in the summertime, what we do, we get in trouble. It's hot outside, right? That's what's happening with the planet. The planet is heating up. You're going to see more extreme weather conditions. You're going to see more conflict, right? You're going to see more problems and issues. So if you understand that and you operating within the time, then you know how to move and what to do. So what I'm telling us is that we have to be a cosmic people.
There you have
So
it.
what is the Save Yourself tour, man? Tell them when the dates are, where they can see you, be a part of these roundtable discussions.
You can go to 19keys.com to sign up for the discussions. Let me get to some of this and check out the books.
Yes, sir.
Man, we got that
The law
Supermind
of saving
coffee.
oneself.
That's how I wake up early, get that lion's mane and that cordyceps in me, you know what I'm talking about? But so we got the Gramercy Theater. I believe it's already sold out. But I believe we're going to Atlanta next, and all the dates will be on the website. The goal is to spread this one out. Tours are very expensive, and we wanted to figure out how do we create activations more so throughout the year, right? Because the goal with each one is to have a conversation with the people, a high-level conversation. I truly believe that that's what's missing in society. High-level conversation, then activation, right? So we know how to utilize AI. We understand cryptocurrency, all right? We understand blockchain systems, right? We have the funding, the right people to access the resources. The goal is to bring them together in a room, have plans, and then execute on those plans. The other day, I built a Dows system by myself, just testing it out. Years ago, that was much harder to do. Every year, these systems become much easier to use. We're just not practicing and using them, updating ourselves. So save yourself is literally a message like, bro, you're not drowning, save yourself, right? Start investing, right? Ain't nothing wrong with you. Start working, getting your mind right. You think you stressed, man, get out the world and go meditate. Go into nature. You feel me? Like somebody don't want to give you a job, bro, create your own. Develop you a skill set over time. Learn AI, man. People need that. Start learning how to master prompt on these systems. Right? Look at where there's a problem and build an app. You got influence, connect with somebody with some money. Combine these things together, right? So the message of save yourself is a reinvention of the message of do for self, right? That we don't need anybody to save us and nobody's coming to save us and nobody needs to come to save us. When I look at the wealth standard of the Asians who have the highest household income in America, they're the most educated, right? They invest their money in gold and things of that nature. Their culture is a savior culture. Right? Gold is at an all-time high today. They say Indian women have the most gold, right? So no matter what's going on in the world, inside their cultural standards, right, is how to save yourself no matter what. We don't have to tell everybody what to do. It's just a cultural practice. So the code is, how do we then just create that as a cultural practice where these meetings and all this radical stuff is not necessary? Because when wealth is, we don't want financial literacy and wealth to be a revolutionary act. We want it to be normal. We want to just have generational wealth. And the only type of wealth that matters is generational, because if it's not passed down, then it's individualistic, right? It's just something that you got, but what did you do with it? Who did you pass along? Where's the power? The boomers about to pass all this wealth to millennials, not us. We look what happened out in California with the wildfires in Altadena, and that's very unfortunate because I believe we need to come together even more for that community that just lost all that generational wealth. All that real estate that was passed down. You know, Octavia Butler comes from there, the mother of futurism and Afrofuturism, and she predicted that. She predicted that it was going to be up in flames. You know, the Hopi people had a prophecy that once we stop being in harmony with the land and we just focus on extraction and domination, right, then that's when Mother Earth turns on us, right? And we need to get back into harmony and flow, and we need a more resilient mind. So everywhere we go, we'll be teaching these things. We'll be having these conversations. It's going to be experiential. It's not just me talking. I'm actually going to talk to the crowd. And the focus, we build our own media network and platforms, right? And we want to platform more talented people. We want scientists on there. We want authors. We want people of vast knowledge and skill set, people of differing opinions. My goal is to make you think, because I believe as a thinking man, you're a free man.
All right, well, there you
19 Keys. Where they can follow you, 19?
Man, they can find me on 19_Keys, or you can follow the YouTube channel, 19 Keys. I drop lectures there all the time, so make sure you tap in.
Make sure you subscribe to the High Level Conversations podcast with 19 Keys.
All right, it's 19 Keys. It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.